One of my favorite teachers, she happens to be my stepmom. She works in a middle school in Brooklyn. And she spends about $350, so far, she spent about $350 on preparing her classroom. And Teacher's Choice we have in the city, they give about $250 back to the teachers for reimbursement. And I think in other parts of the state, they can get a federal tax credit for their supplies. I'm just wondering about your thoughts, and it's not in this proposal, but I'm just wondering about your thought on a state tax credit for professionals to purchase school supplies. And I say professionals because I'm a former high school social worker, so I have to advocate for them as well. So just talk to me about that. And then teacher resources centers have been eliminated. They usually do. We usually reinstate them. If we don't reinstate them, what would the impact be? And then plus one on East Ramapo.
The good work that teachers do in their classrooms to prepare their classrooms is so important. And I know for my own children's classrooms that the beautiful spaces that they create, it certainly saddens us that teachers are spending their own money on that. That said, revenue policy makes us a little nervous. So I want to hesitate to answer that question in detail, but we understand your point very carefully and close to our hearts.
Gotcha.
There was a second part of the question, Commissioner. Do you want to take that?
The teacher resource centers.
Yeah.
The what?
Teacher resource centers. They have been eliminated in the budget. We usually reinstate them, but just imagine if we didn't. What would that impact be?
Okay. Yeah, the teacher resources, obviously, it's something that, you know, we're extremely committed to, both from some tangibles as well as some professional development. And I'm going to ask Angelique to talk about some of the things that we're doing.
So the Teacher Resource Center, which we do work with them directly, knowing and understanding all of the various initiatives that we have going on, talking about implementing culturally responsive, sustaining education, talking about strategies to support some of our struggling learners, in addition to expanding opportunities around instructional best practices with literacy as well as numeracy, will not be able to be provided at the level that it could be if our teacher resource centers are not funded. As a former teacher center director earlier on in my career, I certainly can speak to the amount of professional development that was provided that is essential to help ensure that teachers are able to help further the knowledge that they have to enhance their skills to support students. And I'll pass East Ramapo to Jason.
Yeah, I would just quickly note that the order was very distinct from the structural deficit and the cash flow issues that were highlighted, to Commissioner's point.
Just on the whole cell phone ban, I know that you've spoken enough about it. Those magnets are probably going to be able to be purchased from Glamazon. So we want to be mindful of those things. I worked in high schools just like you did, and we know how creative we can get when we want what we want. So I don't know if it's foolproof, but it's something to think about. Yes. And I'm clear that you said that the staff should know about needing a judicial warrant to enter schools. Yes. And I'm just wondering, when it comes to ACS visits, are staff still on the same page? Does it need to be training? Do we need to pay for training? Because it seems to be problematic. When I was a school social worker, no one knew what the guideline was, and they act as if they're police as well when they're entering our schools. So is there any guidelines when ACS is coming into our schools to visit students?
Absolutely. So our Office of Community Schools, our chief, Flavia Puello Perdomo, she has done a number of trainings, both internally and I believe also with our CBOs around ACS. And I mentioned our Family Navigator program that we're looking to launch, where we would train our family leaders. That's super important. I will just say, if I may, personally, I know that there are some families who are reluctant to get information around these resources and their rights from schools because they still see us as authoritative figures. And so that's why training parent leaders, these trusted validators in the community, to share this information and the guidelines around ACS, preventive services, all the things that you and I have spoke about before, is very important.
Got it. And what borough has the lowest graduation rate?
Which borough has the, unfortunately, I cannot give you the most up-to-date data
Okay.
on that. I do
You'll
know
get back
that
to me, though.
historically, we know that the Bronx has
Mm-hmm.
had some very low graduation rates, and when you disaggregate that by student population, such as our multilingual learners and students for the IEPs, that does drop as well.
Now that we know that, and we know that community schools are an exorbitant cost, why is it that we're not spending more money creating more community schools within our lowest graduating rate borough? Just to throw that out there. One of my schools, Urban Scholars Community School, lost their LEAP grant, or 21st Century, one of them, and they told the students to go to their neighboring community center, which there is not one. So I just want to know, I know you said there's $8 million. How is that money maybe allocated? How are people chosen? How can my schools go out and get it?
Sandy?
Yep, so,
No.
Oh,
so for the loss of the funds from the LEAP grant, there were 57 schools that were partnering with CBOs that received funding from that, and so we gave it to those 57 schools.
My school didn't get it. Okay, we'll chat. We didn't get
Yes,
it.
please.
Let me say this.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm going to +1 on the CTE school because that's exactly where I was a social worker at. And our graduation rate was at a 98%. And it's only because one student didn't graduate by June, graduated later on. So we will do everything that we have to do to make sure we include more money in the budget for CTEs, for community schools, for teacher centers, all of the works. But I have to say this, my favorite teacher is my mom. She's a teacher out in Brooklyn. Teacher's choice reimbursement is $250. She's already spent $350. What are your thoughts on a tax credit for professionals who buy school supplies?
I think it's a phenomenal idea.
Okay.
Okay, so let's, and you, I mean, the teachers will spend more, and it's not just teachers.
It's the
You know,
social
last
workers.
year, and I thank you for making available to the city of New York billions of dollars for the migrant crisis, but for some reason, teachers had to keep buying food, clothing, and everything else for the migrants. I don't know why New York City did not try to implement those funds in an appropriate way. I should stop on that now.
Stop right there.
So,
Are you a yes to this?
My wife's
Are
a
you-
teacher. The answer is absolutely
The
yes.
yes- there's
And
a yes, there's a
she
yes,
spends
there's a
more
yes.
than $300.
right, but
Exactly.
yes, but a state tax credit would clearly be something, and as part of, I mean, you know, Melinda wants to talk to this, is clearly something we're saying we need to look at. And it also, you have to remember, once you do it for a couple of years, we will be able to see how many teachers across the state are actually participating.
And I would be remiss if I didn't say, but also, I love the way that you worded all educators, because
Yes.
certainly our building principals, when all those kids come
The
in.
social workers, I think we got 150 back, but we definitely spent way more than that. And just on the topic of social workers, what are your thoughts on removing the license to, removing the exam for social workers to be licensed? Would that create more social workers in the system? Are you guys opposed, or?
We are talking, we're going to let our social workers define our final position, but I
Okay.
do understand that New York State has this test that has clearly become an impediment in terms of us raising the number of social workers we would have access to. And
Got
that's, until our social workers come to us with the final position, that's where we're at.
Agreed.
Don't know enough about it, but you asked a question earlier, Assemblywoman, about the adequate number of social workers. We need significantly more. I know as a high school principal alone, very quickly, in 20 seconds, I inherited a school with 2,000 kids at high school with a 62% graduation rate. One of the first things I did, I had guidance counselors with a caseload of over 600.
Yeah.
And I gave them 250 kids, and I had 1.5 social workers that I shared, and that alone. If you can't take care of their needs, they're not going to learn algebra, social studies, global studies. When I left my school, I was at 89%.
Thank you. Thank
Larger
you.
than mine.